So as you know, I'm 1 month into my sourdough adventure, the lockdown sourdough adventure. And finally, yesterday, I feel as if I'm beginning to understand how it works. So you've watched me going through the process of reading the books, watching the videos, starting to learn how to make bread. I've been making bread for 12 years, ever since we were here. Normal bread with yeast, which is now I realise so easy compared to this, and I had no idea that making sourdough was so hard. I had no idea that it was a completely different animal. It's like the difference between making cookies and making a French pastry. It's an incredibly complex process and extremely time consuming. It's also chemistry. It's not baking, it's chemistry. So there's a huge intellectual aspect too, because you have to understand all these things in order to be able to approach it. So now I'm starting to be able to create things that look like real sourdough. And I'm beginning to learn, with each time I bake it, I'm learning the mistakes and the things that I should do and shouldn't do, and what is harder and what translates badly once you put it in the oven, and all these things. So yesterday over the last 3 days, because for example, to make 1 loaf of bread, okay, so to make this loaf of bread takes 4 days.
Wow.
4 days. So why does it take 4 days?
Yeah.
It takes 4 days because you know that I have in the fridge next door, which is now my baking fridge, because it's such a dirty, messy process that we can't do it in this kitchen because I just take it over. So we're doing it next door, in my baking kitchen. So I have the starter in the fridge, and I created the starter from scratch, which is basically, instead of yeast, traditional yeast, it's the rising agent. So that takes about a week. It's like an animal, it becomes like a pet. In fact, mine's called Sammy.
Wow.
Sammy the starter. I have 2. I have Sammy and Samantha. And Sammy is white, and the white starter, and Samantha is a sort of wholemeal rye starter. So you have to create the starter, and then from that you make the bread. So you have your starter, which becomes it's a fermented thing in a pot. And so in order to make this piece of bread, this loaf of bread, I had to feed the starter for 2 days in order to reactivate it. Okay, so it had been in the fridge. I reactivate it by feeding it morning, night, morning. Then that night I have to take out a bit, and I have to create a separate mini starter, which will then start the process of these loaves of bread. So you're now on day 2. Then you get to day 3, and you do all your mixing and doing. And day 3, I made this. I made this one. This one. Now, which one? This one didn't come out that brilliantly. But this one is what they call an ambient loaf, which is a loaf of bread that you make on the same day as mixing it. So you get up in the morning, you mix it up, you cook it, and it's ready. But it takes from, let's say, 9 a.m. in the morning until 9 o'clock at night to make this.
Wow.
Now, the reason that this doesn't look terribly brilliant is because I didn't have the proper tool to make the cuts, which is called scoring. Okay, I didn't have the proper tool, so it didn't work very well. I was using a box cutter because I didn't have the proper tool. So then that was the one we made day 3. Today's day 4, and this came out. Now we made this at the same time, right? This is the dough that we made on the same day, but this one had to rise in the fridge overnight. So now this one, because it was in overnight, look at that, it created a skin which enabled me to, using my box cutter, to make a better slice, and that's how it came out. Now this starts to look like a proper sourdough. This is quite exciting. I don't know how it tastes, but it's quite exciting. Now this one is the same as that one. This is called a retarded. These are retarded, this is ambient. These are the overnight ones. Now this one didn't come out as well because it got stuck in the basket. And so getting stuck in the basket, it became a bit flat, as you can see. So all this to say, what I decided is that I'd like to show people all the things that go wrong when you're learning about sourdough, because we watch these videos and I'm doing a course with the Sourdough School and I'm watching all the tutorials and it all looks so amazing and easy. Not easy, it doesn't look easy, they tell you it's difficult, but they don't show you all the things that go wrong. So I think that it would be helpful for people to see what it looks like when it goes wrong, or how difficult it is to struggle with shaping the dough, which is like having slime in your hands, which is just dripping through your fingers and you're not quite sure, and it's literally like having an alien to deal with, and having to make a shape out of something that is totally formless and doesn't hold form. So, and also the mess, and the throwing the flour, and the temperature, and the burning yourself, and the dropping the iPad on the floor because you're trying to shape it and you knock it, and all these things that go wrong, which so far have gone wrong for me in the last month. And to follow this journey of trying to get from being a complete beginner to falling in love with the whole process of sourdough, because it's so meditative, it's like meditation. It's you go into this space and it's just, and you've got the flour, and you've got the texture, and you've got the space and the time, and it's a very meditative process, and it's also very focused, because you start and you've got a journey for the next 12 to 20 hours of making this bread. And you have to plan it, because for example I know that I'm going to be making bread next weekend, so I have to know that on Thursday I will start to feed my starter in order to be ready to bake it. So that's, it takes up headspace. It's like having an eating disorder in a good way. So that's what I'd like to do. I think it would be fun to show people how difficult it is.
And you took lessons, right?
I didn't take lessons. I signed up with something called the Sourdough School, and they have tutorials. And this amazing woman called Vanessa Kimball, and you go in and you see all the lessons, and you have all the recipes, and you look at the website, and you learn online at your own speed. But I watch the same tutorial all the time. I mean, to make this every time, I have this up on the computer, looking at it, so that I know exactly what I have.
So what do you have here? You have two types. You have two types of bread. You have two types of sourdough.
I do. I have the ambient, which is this one, and I have the retarded, which are these two. Anyway, we will continue. The next time what we'll do is we'll get into the kitchen while it's going on and see the mess. Okay?